All stood intent. The hillside above the black point lace of the pine shadow seems bright as day and is colorless as snow. The setting plaster in the holes positively show. Kossar's loose framework moved toward. So far, said Kossar. Crack! Bang! A shot from near the house then. Stillness. What's that? Said Benson. Rats. Put its head out, suggested one of the men. By the by, we left our guns up there, said Benson. By the sacks. Everyone began to walk towards the hill again. That must be the rats, said Benson. Obviously, said Kossar, gnawing his fingernails. Bang! Hello, said one of the men. Then abruptly came a shout. 2 shots. A loud shot that was almost a scream. 3 shots in rapid succession and a splintering of wood. All these sounds were very clear and very small in the immense stillness of the night. Then for some moments, nothing but a minute, muffled confusion from the direction of the rat hole. And then again, a wild yell. Each man found himself running hard for the guns. He found himself gun in hand going hard through the pine trees after a number of receding backs. Hello, said Kossar, and caught him in his arms. What's this? They came out together, said the man. The rats. Yes, 6 of them. Where's Flack? Down. What's he say? Panted Bensington coming up unheeded. Flack's down? He fell down. They came out, one after the other. What? Made a rush. I fired both barrels first. You left Flack? They were on to us. Come on, said Kossar. You come with us. Where's Flack? Show us. The whole party moved forward. Further details of the engagement dropped from the man who had run away. The others clustered about him except Kossar, who led. Where are they? Back in their holes, perhaps. I cleared. They made a rush for their holes. What do you mean? Did you get behind them? We got down by their holes, saw them come out, and tried to cut them off. They louped out like rabbits. We ran down and let fly. They ran about wild after our first shot and suddenly came at us, went for us. How many? 6 or 7. Kossar led the way to the edge of the pine wood and halted. Do you mean they got Flack? Asked someone. One of them was on to them. Didn't you shoot? How could I? Everyone loaded, said Kossar over his shoulder. There was a confirmatory movement. There is no time to lose, said Kossar, and shouted, Flack, as he led the way. The whole force advanced toward the rat holes, the man who had run away a little to the rear. They went forward through the rank, exaggerated weeds, and skirted the body of the second dead rat. They were extended in a bunchy line, each man with his gun pointed forward, and they peered about them in the clear moonlight for some crumpled, ominous shape, some crouching form. They found the gun of the man who had run away very speedily. Flack! Cried Kossar. Flack! Confounded, swore Kossar. Where has everything got to? He strode a step toward the black shadows on the hillside that masked the holes and stood staring. Then he swore again. If they have dragged him in, so they hunted for a space. Then abruptly, Kossar chose his line. He flapped his limbs this way and that and expelled orders in pellets. It was obvious he wanted lambs. Everyone except Kossar was moving toward the house. You're going into the hole? Asked Redwood. Obviously, said Kossar. He made it clear once more that the lamps of the cart and trolley were to be got and brought to him. Bensington, grasping this, started off along the path by the well. He glanced over his shoulder and saw Kossar's gigantic figure standing out, as if he were regarding the holes pensively. At the sight, Bensington halted for a moment and half-turned. They were all leaving Kossar. Kossar was able to take care of himself, of course. Suddenly, Bensington saw something that made him shout a wingless "Hi!" In a second, 3 rats had projected themselves from the dark tangle of creeper toward Kossar. For 3 seconds, Kossar stood there, unaware of them, and then he'd become the most active thing in the world. He didn't fire his gun. Apparently, he had no time to aim or to think of aiming. He ducked the leaping rat, Bensington saw, and then smashed at the back of his head with the butt of his gun. The monster gained one leap and fell over itself. Kassa's form went right down, out of sight, among the reedy grass. And then he rose again, running toward another of the rats, and whirling his gun overhead. A faint shout came to Bensington's ears. Then he perceived the remaining two rats bolting divergently, and Kassa in pursuit towards the hole. The whole thing was an affair of misty shadow. All three fighting monsters were exaggerated and made unreal by the delusive clearness of the light. At moments, Kassa was colossal. At moments, invisible. The rats flashed athwart the eye in sudden, unexpected leaps, or ran with a movement of the feet so swift they seemed to run on wheels. It was all over in half a minute. No one saw it but Bensington. He could hear the others behind, still receding toward the house. He shouted something inarticulate and ran back towards Kassa while the rats fled. He came up to him outside the hole. In the moonlight, the distribution of shadows that constituted Kassa's visage intimated calm. "Hello," said Kassa. "Back already? Where's the lambs?" "They're all back now in their holes. The one I broke the neck of as it ran past me. See there?" And he pointed a gaunt finger. Bensington was too astonished for conversation. The lambs seemed an interminable time in coming. At last they appeared. About them came little figures with little voices. "Black," the voices said. "Black." An illuminating sentence floated up. "Locked himself in the act." Kassa was continually more wonderful. He produced great handfuls of cotton wool and stuffed them in his ears. Bensington wondered why. Then he loaded his gun with a quarter charge of powder. Who else could have thought of that? Then, the disappearance of Kassa's twin boot soles up the central hole. Kassa was on all fours, with two guns, one trailing on each side from a string under his chin, and his most trusted assistant, a little dark man with a grave face, was to go in stooping behind him, holding a lantern over his head. Everything had been made as sane and as obvious and as proper as a lunatic's dream. The wool, it seems, was on account of the concussion of the rifle. The man had some too, obviously. So long as the rats turned tail on Kassa, no harm could come to him. And directly they headed for him, he would see their eyes and fire between them. Since they would have to come down the cylinder of the hole, Kassa could hardly fail to hit them. It was, Kassa insisted, the obvious method. A little tedious perhaps, but absolutely certain. As the assistant stooped to enter, Bensington saw that the end of a ball of twine had been tied to the tail of his coat. By this he was to draw in the rope if it should be needed to drag out the bodies of the rats. Bensington perceived that the object he held in his hand was Kassa's silk hat. How had it got there? It would be something to remember him by. At each of the adjacent holes stood a little group with a lantern on the ground shining at the hole, and with one man kneeling and aiming at the round void before him, waiting for anything that might emerge. There was an interminable suspense. Then they heard Kassa's first shot, like an explosion in a mine. Everyone's nerves and muscles tightened with that. And bang, bang, bang. The rats had tried a bolt, and two more were dead. Then the man who held the ball of twine reported a twitching. "He's killed one in there," said Bensington, "and he wants the rope." He watched the rope creeping through the hole, and it seemed as though it had become animated by a serpentine intelligence, for the darkness made the twine invisible. At last it stopped crawling, and there was a long pause. Then what seemed to Bensington the queerest monster of all crept slowly from the hole and resolved itself into the little engineer, emerging backward. After him, and plowing deep furrows, Cassar's boots rushed out, and then came his lantern-illuminated back. Only one rat was left alive now, and this poor doomed wretch cowered in the innermost recesses until Cassar and the lantern went in again and slew. And finally, Cassar, that human fairy, went through all the runs to make sure. "We got him," he said to his new awe-stricken company at last. "And if I hadn't been a mud-headed mucker, I should have stripped to the waist. Obviously. Feel my sleeves, Benson. I'm wet through with perspiration. Bloody hard to think of everything. Only half the way up of whiskey can save me from a cold. The exertion of dragging the 7 dead rats to the funeral pyre by the nether grove left him bathed in perspiration, when Cassar pointed out the obvious physical reaction of whiskey to save him from the otherwise inevitable chill. There was a sort of brigand supper in the old brick kitchen, with the row of dead rats lying in the moonlight against the hinged rump outside. And after 30 minutes or so of rest, Cassar roused them all to the labors that were still to do. Obviously, as he said, they had to wipe the place out. No litter, no scat, see? He stirred them up to the idea of making destruction complete. They smashed and splintered every fragment of wood in the house. They built trails of chopped wood wherever big vegetation was springing. They made a pyre for the rat bodies and soaked them in paraffin. "Burn everything," said Cassar, going to and fro. "Burn the ground and make a clean sweep of it, see?" They snatched their guns from the corner of the Skinner's living room, and then everyone was running. Cassar came after them with heavy strides. Then they were standing looking back at the experimental farm. It was boiling up. The smoke and flames poured out like a crowd in a panic, from doors and windows and from 1,000 cracks and crevices in the wood. A great column of smoke, shot with blood-red tongues and darting flashes, rushed up into the sky. It was like some huge giant suddenly standing up, straining upward, and abruptly spreading his great arms across the sky. It cast the night back upon him, utterly hiding and obliterating the incandescence of the sun that rose behind him. All Hickory Brow was soon aware of that stupendous pillar of smoke, and came out upon the crest in various disheveled to watch them coming. Behind, like some fantastic fungus, the smoke pillar swayed and fluctuated up into the sky, making the diamonds seem low, and all other objects petty. And in the foreground, led by Cassar, the makers of this mischief followed the path. 8 little black figures coming rearward, guns shouldered across the meadow. As Bensington looked back, there came into his jaded brain and echoed there a familiar formula. What was it? "You have lived today. You have lived today." Then he remembered Latimer's word. "We have lit this day such a candle in England as no man may ever put out again." And while these 8 adventurers fought with rats about the experimental farm, 9 miles away, in the village of Cheesing Eyebrow, an old lady with an excessive nose struggled with great difficulties by the light of a flickering candle. She gripped a sardine tin in one gnarled hand, and in the other she held a tin of the food of the gods which she had resolved to open or die. She struggled indefatigably, grunting at each fresh effort, while through the flimsy partition the voice of the cattle's infant wail. "Bless his poor arm," said Mrs. Skinner. And then, with her solitary tooth biting her lip in an ecstasy of determination, "Come on!" And presently, a fresh supply of the food of the gods was let loose to wreak its powers of giantry.